channel, Film-A-Tic, pop, 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 where we discuss everything from movies, film, television shows, music videos, everything your heart desires. So grab your popcorn, water, drinks, candy, and let's get into it. But before we do, have you subscribed? Have you subscribed? I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the month. So if you could please help me on my journey. Please, 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 please. I'm not too proud to beg. Please, 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 please. Thank you so much. And I appreciate everybody who stops by and who leaves a comment, because I will respond. So with that being said, the movie starts off with one of my favorite gospel songs, Who Holds Tomorrow. When I first heard that, I was just jamming along with it. Just love that song. It's so powerful. So, the opening scene starts, you see this little boy in his drawers, meaning his underwear, and his undergarments, and he is painting a wall. So, he calls his mom into the room, and she looks, and you could tell she's proud of what he's done. And the little boy did a great job, and she was correct. It was reminiscent of Basquiat, his style of artistry. So, it was beautifully done, I must say. Stars Tasha Smith. She's the preacher of a church, and she's getting deep into the word. So you see Glenn J. Blige, also known as Alberta, played by Glenn Close, and she is really soaking in that word. She's getting it in, like, when you in church and it just resonates, so you just like, So she's having that moment. Now, I will say my first initial response to Glenn Close, I said, why do they got this wig on this woman? And then I thought about it. So tell me why, true story. So in the midst of me watching this film, I see the wig on Glenn Close, and I paused the movie, and my mom was sitting on the couch, and I said, Mama, and please no shade to anybody with this, I'm just being honest. I said, Mama, don't she look like them white women who begin with black men? Like, she got that haircut. It's like that K+8 haircut, with the bobbin. So my mom was like, you tripping. No, I wouldn't. So anyway, so we move along. The next scene, Alberta, played by Glenn Close, Ebony, played by Audra Day, and her 3 children are sitting at the table having what I believe to be a Sunday dinner. So, everything seems all nice and wonderful until Glenn Close's character, Alberta, she starts making comments about Ebony's food. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. That scene really did trigger me for different reasons that I'm not going to get into, but it did trigger me because I feel like as a parent, especially if your child has children, there's a way that you address the parent in front of the child. So in this case, to me, Alberta should have taken her child, Ebony, to the side, and then she could have talked about her cooking and different things that were going on, but she chose that time to, in many ways, embarrass her in front of her children. And that I did not appreciate. So this scene sets up the dysfunctional behavior of the family. So you start to see the type of environment that they're living in, and it is pure toxic. That's all I can describe it as. You have Ebony cussing out her mother, the children getting smart with the parent. Like, it was just pure dysfunction, which breeds a perfect environment for evil, if you want to be honest. So I think this scene adds credence to what's going to happen, and it kind of foreshadows a lot of things because the dysfunction bred so much more. And it was just like, is this how we talk to one another? Okay. When she told her mama to shut the F up, I clutched my pearls. I mean, these invisible pearls was clutched. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the mama was like, F-U-B. And I was just like, this is just dysfunction at its finest. So then the son says he wants more milk. The youngest son, Andre, says he wants more milk. Now, Andre lactose intolerant. So when Ebony tells him no, he can't have it because he's lactose intolerant, he basically said, you haven't took me to the doctor to be diagnosed. You just being cheap. She slapped, and I knew it was coming. She slapped the dog mess out of him. And because he was eating and, the fork was in his mouth, He started bleeding. Now, how do I put this? I do not encourage abuse in any way, shape, or form. But I will say this. If I ever thought I could talk to my mama, talk to my grandma like that, I wouldn't be alive to tell the tale. So, again, it was just a whole bunch of toxicity and dysfunction within the family. So, in the next scene, you have the kids in their room, and her Ebony's daughter Shantae is like, don't bring up their dad because it makes their mom sensitive. Later on, we find out that the dad is in the military, but the kids are making him aware of a lot of the things that are going on. Later on, Ebony is walking through the house and she smells a rancid smell. It's disgusting. So she sees a bunch of flies outside of the basement door and she tries to shoo the flies back in the basement, but I found it interesting that she didn't go down to the basement. So I knew something was going to be revealed as to why she never went down to the basement. Because if there's rancid smells, flies coming out of the basement, 9 times out of 10, something dead is down there. But what do I know? I'm just a person who watches a lot of forensic files. So in the next scene, Andre goes downstairs and he's just gulping down milk. Now, he seems to not be there. Initially, I thought he was just sleepwalking, but he goes outside and he goes into the basement. So we know there's something more to what is going on because this doesn't seem to be normal behavior. The next scene shows that Ebony is going through financial difficulty. Now, this I honestly didn't understand because the husband's in Iraq, in the military. So is he not sending money to Ebony? Is he not sending child support? Like, it wasn't clear as to why the situation was what it was financially. The couple separated, but why was her financial disposition so bad? So you see she's calling the bill collectors trying to sort that out. And you see that her son Nate, who's the eldest son, and the daughter Shantae is walking home from school. There's some boys on the corner, and one in particular is making fun of Nate to the point where he throws a rock at him. Shantae tries to stand up for Nate, but Nate just continues to be quiet and walks home. When Ebony sees that Nate has blood on his shirt, and Shantae tells her what happened, look at here, Ebony gangster, okay? Ebony walked her tail all the way down to those boys on the corner, kicked him in his nether regions, his regions down south, the love below. She kicked him in that region and then threatened him and said, look, you don't touch my son, basically. And then said, call your mama and I'll rock her too. I said, this woman crazy. This woman crazy. This is not normal behavior. Pause for the cause. This is what I didn't like about this scene, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong or share your opinions in the comment section, please. So, when I watched this scene, it kind of upset me because, one, I don't think it is proper for mothers to insert themselves in certain situations. I understand that you want to protect your child. I get that wholeheartedly. But what you are doing, in essence, is diminishing him as a man and saying, I'm going to fight your battles. Mom is not always going to be there to protect him. So Nate would have to learn to either defend himself or stand up for himself. But mom comes in and saves the day. And I think in the long run, that's going to be a problem. Now, am I looking further into the future? Of course. Do I understand why Ebony was upset? Of course. But do I think that was necessarily the right thing to do? No. Because what she was doing was putting herself in a situation that could have been detrimental to her. So take, for instance, had she went down there, she did the same thing, but there were 4 or 5 guys who were taller than her and bigger than her. That could have really been a bad situation. I'm happy she got out, but that was just my perspective of that scene. I did not think it was wise. Now, does that type of stuff happen every single day? Of course. But I just think as the mother, I don't think that was the wise thing to do. So she walks back home Alberta is looking at her like, and you see she has resentments toward Alberta. She's basically like, you can't tell me anything. Look at what you did to me. And Alberta is genuinely trying to make a change. Or at least that's what I got from it. She's going to church. She's trying to be a better person. And her daughter is holding whatever occurred in the past over her head. Now, one thing I noticed was it seems like Alberta never apologized. Or they never had that conversation of whatever happened. And I think that added to the resentment. And it happens oftentimes in a lot of families where horrific things happen and people sweep things under the rug, so it kind of goes along with it. Moving on! So we see Ebony is outside with Andre, and Andre is on the swing, but he's talking to no one. Like, he's talking, but you don't see anybody. Like, you like, who he talking to? Casper the Friendly Ghost? So Ebony tells him to stop talking to himself and tells him to go in the house. And there's flies just coming around, just flying, flipping, and just annoying, right? Now, I will say this next scene started off very cute. So you had Alberta doing Ebony's sewing, and Ebony was doing Shantae's hair, and they were watching a movie. So it was interesting because me and my grandmother used to do this as well. We would watch a movie and we would start saying the words to the movie, and they all were doing it, and it was a sweet scene at first. Ebony then tells Shantae, hey, why don't we do a big party for you when your dad gets here, and we can just do something small, and, your dad can get you the phone when he gets here because Shantae wants a phone. Shantae throws a fit. And then it's like, I'm tired of being broke and you're just trying to be cheap and all this other stuff. And again, it was a trigger for me because I feel like there was no communication in the family. No communication. If you see your mother is struggling, why are you throwing a fit about a party? And before anyone tells me anything, yes, I've been a teenager. Yes, I understand the importance of birthdays. I celebrate birthdays heavily. I celebrate for the month, actually. But with that being said, and I know I'm just using me as an example and she's a different person, but I can't imagine when my mom was going through financial issues, me going that hard on her over a party or a phone. I have a phone. It may not be new, but I have a phone, and just the way they were talking to one another. But again, Alberta disrespected Ebony, Ebony disrespected Alberta, and the kids disrespected Ebony because they had no respect for her because of how she was acting. So that was that scene. Andre, he then goes downstairs and he goes in the basement. And you see Ebony, she hears a noise and she goes downstairs, but the door was closed. So it's something dealing with this basement. In the next scene, Glenn J. Blige, also known as Alberta, she's trying on different wigs. Now, we see that Alberta is clearly suffering from cancer. So, she put on her cute blonde wig. She get all dolled up. And she goes to the clinic so she can get her medicine, her chemo done. And Alberta still got it. Men are hitting on her, and she's like, I gotta get this done. So she goes in, and we see the nurse, Omar F's character, and Alberta must have been something in her heyday. I'm just gonna be honest, cause she laying in the chemo chair and she's giving him the eye, and she's rubbing her nitty pots, aka her titterlings, aka her chickadees. She's rubbing all on him, and he's looking like, oh, you looking good, and they're having that flirtatious moment. And then you see two women kind of hating on her, and this is what I don't get, okay? Regardless of why Alberta got cute to go for chemo, I commend her for not staying in a somber space. That's how I put it. She put on her makeup, she went and got dressed and went to chemo. So that's how she wanted to present herself. I didn't understand why the other ladies were upset. Like, whatever she chooses to do with her nini pots, that's her business. But I applaud her in such a situation as cancer, big as that is, that, she still decided to swish and get ready. I'm not mad at it. So as she leaves, the nurse tells her that, hey, she's behind on her chemo. So she's like, look, I get Medicaid. So the lady was like, we stopped taking Medicaid over a year ago. Your daughter has been paying for it. So Alberta clearly didn't know. So when Ebony comes home drunk, she confronts her and she's like, so you've been paying for me to go to the clinic? And she was like, yeah, it's no big deal. And Alberta was like, I don't know what to say. And I'm just like, why don't you just say thank you and y'all go along? But there's such a breakdown within their relationship. And it's like, I really wish they could have, saw someone to repair that relationship. But it is what it is. So in the following scene, Ebony falls asleep. This is after she comes home drunk. Her mom confronts her, and she falls asleep on the bed. And you see that she's having what seems to be a nightmare about a man in a basement. So, of course, there's something there. So when she wakes up from the nightmare, her room door immediately closes. So she thinks the kids are up or somebody's in the house. She picks up a bat. She go downstairs. Like I said, she gangsta. She looks in the basement. No one's there, but it smells horrible. So she regurgitates. She pukes. And her son comes down and he sees that she's in that state. So Nate asks Ebony, where's my money? So let's rewind. When Ebony came downstairs and saw that Nate had blood on his shirt, prior to that, she went in his room and she found a vodka bottle or some liquor and a wad of cash. So fast forward back to that time, and Nate asked her, where's my money? And she asked him, where did you get this money? Are you selling drugs? What is this? He reveals that the father has been sending him money and he's been saving it so he can get away from her. At this point, she doesn't know what to say. She's hurt. She's upset. They end up fighting. It was really bad. And I will say this, at a certain age, you can't put your hands on these boys. They're bigger than you. It is what it is. And honestly, you shouldn't be putting your hands on them anyway. But specifically, once they get a certain age, you can't do it. Now, you can instill fear, but putting your hands on them is not going to go well. And she learned that. So later on, she goes to his room and she puts the money back in his drawer. And she knows he's awake. And she basically says, I don't know how someone like me could have someone as good as you. And that saddened me that she felt so badly about herself. But I am happy she sees the goodness in her son. So she asked him to stay. The next day they're outside and they're just hanging out. And an exterminator goes down to the basement and he pulls out a dead animal. And he asks for $60. Ebony says she doesn't have it. Nate goes upstairs and gives the $60. And then she makes a very snarky, racist remark to the gentleman who was the exterminator. Then you see Sister Cynthia, played by Monique. And must I say, yes, I shall. She looked fabulous, darling. Yes, Monique looked great. I loved her outfit, loved the shoes with the outfit. I was here for it and living, okay? So they go inside and it's revealed that Cynthia is the DCS worker. If you don't know what that is the Department of Child Protective Services. So she works with them. And she's like, so where you been? How you been? So when Ebony moved, she didn't tell Cynthia she was moving. So now Cynthia is assessing, okay, how's the kids? What's going on? She notices there's bruises on the children. Andre, the youngest son, she said, how you get the bruises on you? And he said, the playground. The playground. Okay, Bob. So, and the kids are acting like they don't know any information. Also, Cynthia went up to the school, and clearly the kids are having trouble in school. So Cynthia dismisses the kids, and she lets her know, look, I'm not here to make your life harder, but I'm here for the welfare of these children. Now, what was the kicker for me was when this woman, Cynthia, sat her butt in that chair, kicked her feet up. I said, and the way Ebony was looking at her like, B, what is this? I was like, not her getting comfortable. So she tells her that she's going to keep an eye on her and she needs to get her stuff together or I will report you, basically. Alberta comes down and I'm sorry, I busted out laughing. She was like, "Have a good day, Cynthia." And Cynthia was like, "You and your cockeyed mama have a better day." I said, "Not cockeyed. I'm done." I'm not gonna lie, I was rolling after that one. Also, Cynthia lets it be known that the father is taking Ebony to court to get sole custody, and he's alleging that there's drug use, alcoholism, neglect. So, from where I'm standing, I'm not gonna lie, it's true. But it does seem like the father is fighting from afar. If he's in Iraq, he's still trying to fight for his children and gain sole custody given the dire situation. So we go to Shantae's birthday party and everything's great. She gives Shantae the phone. Then she shows her natural black tail. I am so serious. She's dancing with two different dudes. It's just inappropriate. Now, what I will say is it was a funny scene where Omar Epps' character, the nurse, he starts singing to Alberta, "You'll never find." And I'm like, come on, sir. Inappropriate timing. Like, read the room. But, they were having a good time initially until Ebony got drunk and she just started showing her butt. Now, something crucial that occurred during the party was Andre was banging his head on the wall in the basement. So Ebony heard a noise, and when she went to the basement door, she opened it, and he was banging his head. So when she asked Andre, "What's going on?" he said there was a big hole in the basement, and it just sounded crazy. If I'm gonna be real, it sounded crazy. She sent him upstairs. She put an ice pack on him, and that's afterwards when she started showing a tail. In that scene, also, he reveals that he was talking to Trey, and Trey lives in the hole in the basement. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not a parent, but I don't know what a parent would do in that moment. Like, I know kids have imaginary friends, but that's kind of outlandish a little bit. But, things happen. So then you hear there's noises in the room. Everybody's left. But Ebony goes to the kids' room. You hear a bunch of screaming and yelling. Alberta goes in, and there's a hole in the wall that was painted. And the kids are in the corner, scared to death, crying. And Alberta is like, "What did you do?" And Ebony, she looks so confused. She doesn't know what happened. All right, so this next scene, this is when everything starts to... All right, so this next scene is where everything starts to hit the fan. Shantae is in choir. Nate is in class. Andre is in class. Now, Shantae goes up to the boss. Shantae goes up to the choir director, and she whispers something that was shocking to him because immediately he's like... And you see that she's on her period and she's bleeding and she's just staring at him. Nate starts laughing when the teacher was talking about drug use, and he just busts out laughing, and then he gets up in an intimidating, aggressive manner and looks at the teacher. Andre raises his hand to go to the bathroom, but then decides he's going to pull down his pants and throw poop at his teacher. Now, as a teacher in the moment right now, I can't imagine ever. So that was a little bit triggering for me, I'm not gonna lie. So Ebony takes the kids to the doctor, and they're being assessed, blood work, psychological testing, all of that stuff. And when it's time for her to talk to, I'm just going to say the doctor or maybe the nurse, whoever that lady was, the lady was not looking at wasn't looking at Ebony. She was constantly looking at Alberta and eliciting a response from Alberta. Now, there's one of two things, or maybe both, that was occurring, okay? Because two things can't be true at the same time. Because I was like, why is she talking to Alberta when Ebony's the parent? It could be one that, of course, she noticed the bruises on the children, so she felt Ebony was abusing them, and that's why she was talking to Alberta. Two, it could have been a race-related situation of why she was specifically talking to Alberta and not Ebony. Now, before y'all say, let's not play the race card, as people like to say, it could be possible. Because in this movie, there's a trend of the doctors not taking certain things seriously with these particular children. So, I mean, it's not above reproach. So, it could have been one, the other, or both. But the nurse, doctor, whoever, she was not addressing Ebony. She was addressing Alberta. And Ebony was like, there's something wrong with my kids. And she was kind of dismissing it. And she then questions Ebony about possible abuse. So Ebony gets quiet at that moment and Alberta just looking. So as they're walking out of the hospital, Ebony is basically chastising her mother and saying, you don't support me and I needed you to speak up, but instead it's like you were supporting them and you were co-signing what they were saying. And they're just writing me off because I'm just a black girl and with the black kids and judging me. When I tell you she read her mama for filth, she read her mama for filth. She basically said that you just another white bee who like to sleep with black men, but when it's time for you to speak up for black people, you don't want to speak up for black people. When it's time for you to stand in it, you're not there. Now, I'm not even going to speak on that particular topic, but I will say this. Ebony has alluded to the fact that her mom was abusive to her. She alluded to it in multiple scenes. So clearly, Alberta was not the best mother, right? Now, with that being said, I do think that instead of Ebony choosing to be better and working towards healing, it's easier for her to chastise her mother and to try to elicit conviction from her mother and be angry with her mother because that's comfortable versus doing the work to heal. Because everything was, you did it. And I'm like, yeah, how did that make you feel? So why are you doing this to your children when you know how it made you feel? But I know that's more of a healing mindset. That's a growth mindset. And Ebony was not there yet. And no, I'm not excusing Alberta, but I am saying that I can see Ebony playing victim a lot. Also, Ebony said that she didn't turn Alberta in. So I'm like, what is that about? So when they get home, Ebony is downstairs and she goes upstairs to check on Andre, and she hears a lot of noise in the bathroom. When she walks in, Nate is trying to drown Andre. Literally has him held down in the water. So at this point, she's calling for Alberta. Alberta comes upstairs. Alberta tries to console Nate, and then she looks at Andre, and Andre has a void look. Let me stop. Void isn't the word. Just a look of evil in that baby's eyes. Just something ain't right. You know what I mean? So that's how that scene ended. And if it was me, I would have been very frightened. Because at this point, what is going on? You have a perfectly good child who doesn't seem to be extremely problematic, who is trying to drown his younger brother. Yeah, there's something going on. Immediately after, Cynthia arrives. Perfect timing. Cynthia arrives, and when she walks in, Ebony is just in distress. she tries to tell Cynthia there's something going on. And then she pulled this, and I knew it was going to be a problem. She was like, black woman to black woman. So Cynthia then says she had a child, and her child was killed by someone who ran her baby over. She turned away for a second, and then somebody ran over her child. So she was like, I despise women like you who take your children for granted. And I was just like, whew. And Ebony was like, why don't you believe me? And in my mind, I'm like, Ebony girl, she has many reasons not to believe you. Now, I understand you in dire need, but it sounds like you've been on some boy who cried wolf type of demeanor for a while. So now she doesn't believe you. So Cynthia's like, look, I'm going to end up taking your children away. And Alberta come downstairs with a bat, like mother, like daughter. And Cynthia was like, a bat? Really? So she walks to her car. And Alberta was like, you need to get your ish together because they're going to take the children away. So then we're introduced to the prophet who's sitting outside just looking. So they think the prophet is with Cynthia, but the prophet not with Cynthia. You get what I'm saying? And Andre is looking out the window, just looking and assessing everything. So Alberta goes to see the preacher. The preacher lets her know, look, there's nothing I can do for you. I don't know how to handle this. I've never heard of this before. So clearly that was not her expertise. So we see Ebony at a bar, and she just having a good old time. So when she exits the bar, the prophet is standing outside. And she's like, look, your kids are in danger. You know, your kids are sick. So they go to Mickey D's. And when they go to Mickey D's, she basically tells her, I'm a prophet. And she tells them the story of a family who lived in the home prior. And the family was a beautiful family. And something happened. The wife ended up chopping off the husband's head and then killing the rest of the kids. It was just bad. So there's something going on with that house. Ebony doesn't believe it, which is very odd to me when your eldest son, who by all intents and purposes isn't a violent person, you just saw him trying to strangle his younger brother, and you now think this is out of the realm of possibility? Maybe I'm just tripping, but I just didn't understand. Like, I wasn't understanding how you don't believe what's going on. Something's not right. Clearly, something's not right. The prophet says when I tell you I wanted to shout, child, I wanted to shout. She said, Ebony was like, so you an exorcist? And she was like, I'm not an exorcist. I don't need an exorcism because I have basically a direct line to the Holy One, to Jesus Christ. God, Jesus is my intercessor. I said, I will dance. I'm not gonna lie, I started shouting, y'all. When she said Jesus is my intercessor, I said, won't he do it? Won't he do it? Yes. Got chills. I got chills. I said, yes, Lord, won't he do it? I felt that in my soul. Yes, I did. All right, so this next thing was a trip. So Alberta is in the house. Now, I will say this. Alberta was trying to do right in her life, and she was growing her relationship with the good Lord. And when she was there, the lights immediately cut off, and then you see a shadow of something. And when you see the shadow, it's the shadow, but it's like a black cast over Andre, and he's strangling the grandmother. So when Ebony gets home, the cross that Alberta had hung up in the home was burning. And then her mother was dead. And Andre comes downstairs and Ebony calls him. She's like, Andre! And when he comes down, he's like, what's wrong with grandma? And she was like, you tell me. So then the kids come down, the police are there, she's upset, Cynthia's taking pictures. It's just a bad scene. And Ebony takes the kids and they're driving around. So Ebony basically says she don't know what's going on. She don't know where she's taking them kids. And when she looks in the rearview mirror, she hears Andre saying something. He's whispering something. And he was like, your mother's dead because of you. So she was like, she asked Nate, what did he say? And then he repeated it. And when she looked in the rearview mirror, Andre's eyes were black. So, clearly he has been overtaken by a demon. So she's scared. She jumped out the car. I'm like, girl, you ain't concerned with the rest of the other two. She said, F them kids. And she left them in the car with the demon. I said, oh, wow. She goes in. She's like, oh, my God, my children. And she sounds hysterical. She sounds crazy. When the man come out who worked at the restaurant, he looks in the car, and he's like, he sees these poor children. So he called the police. And in the next scene, she's being assessed psychologically, mentally. They're trying to see what's wrong with this woman. They end up taking her children, obviously. And she's in shambles. So she goes to see the prophet. The prophet is having a worship session or something like that. And she's like, what does this thing want? And she was like, it wants your baby. And everybody in the house to be dead and gone. Ooh, that's a hard pill to swallow. So she's asking questions. So the next scene, Andre is in the hospital and he's being restrained. He's shaking. He looks like he's having a seizure. You got white stuff coming out of his mouth, right? So Cynthia's like, what is going on? And the lady says he's been like this since last night. He's been shaking, growling, hissing, speaking in another language. So Cynthia goes into the room. And she's like, Andre, do you know who I am? And he starts laughing. And he said he likes watching you sleep. Julian. Julian was the name of her son that was killed. So she's like, how do you know about Julian? Did your mother tell you? And he was like, my mother is dead, and so is Jesus Christ, or something in that manner. So she said, why would you say that? And he was like, untie me and I'll tell you. There's nothing wrong. And she was like, sir, I just saw a little boy break out of his restraints, then climb on the wall. What do you mean? I'm like, thank you for stating the obvious. Like, I'm trying to understand. And that goes back to what I was saying before about not taking certain children, particularly African-American children and children of color, seriously. But that's another conversation for another day. So I know why he put that in there. So we also see that Ebony is with the prophet, and as she's with the prophet, she's telling her when she lost faith. So it is then revealed, trigger warning, if you have any back history with sexual assault, this has something to do with that, so I'm just letting you know. So if there's any bad history with being SA'd, I'm letting you know now, this is coming up. So in this particular scene, Ebony is letting the prophet know that when she was younger, her mom told her to go into the basement and sent a man in there to SA her. And you see him unbuckling his pants, and we know inevitably what happens after that. And she was saying that she called on God and God did nothing. And I'm just going to be honest, this was, in my opinion, I respectfully and humbly say this, that was a missed opportunity in this movie. There are a lot of people, man and woman, who have endured what Ebony endured. And I think that scene could have really been powerful for a few different reasons. And there could have been more done instead of the prophet then saying, okay, let's pray. And God, please forgive her of her sins. And you get what I'm saying? It's like it was glossed over in a sense. And it's like, now let's just pray. And I didn't think it was realistic. I understand this is a movie, but there was a better way it could have been done, in my humble opinion. In the next scene, Ebony pretends to be a nurse, and she brings Andre out of the hospital. They take him back to the home. The prophet is there, and they're preparing to do the deliverance. Okay, that's why it's called the deliverance. It's not an exorcism; it's the deliverance. So they're preparing for that, and she lets her know, look, don't believe nothing it says, because it's gonna do things to try to sway you, to try to distract you. So the prophet gets into it. She starts calling on the name of Jesus, asking Jesus to enter the room, spraying it with holy water, and the demon takes form of her mother, Alberta. And I'm not gonna lie, this scene is crazy. I'm gonna insert this. I said, oh my God. So after that, the prophet ends up getting killed trying to perform the deliverance. Now, Ebony goes downstairs to try to save Andre. Andre now is in demonic form, meaning the demon has overtaken his body. So he started beating the living daylights out of Ebony. I feel so bad for her. So Ebony dies, but then she is renewed. Get the symbolism for all us Christians, we know. Um, Ebony dies and then is renewed, so she's able to fight against the demon who has now changed into Ebony's form. So it's like she's fighting with herself and her demons. I love the thought process of that scene. So Ebony then starts praying to Jesus, and then she starts speaking in tongues, and she's able to cast the demon away, and the house starts shaking. While all of this is happening, Nate and Shantae, they're being affected. They're in I'm gonna say group home or something, and Nate starts puking, and then he starts cutting himself and biting himself, and he's in the room that has a cross in it, but he's scared and he's frightened, but he's still hurting himself. Shantae is what is it? She's flying. I can't think of the word. I know it's a more professional word, but she's floating into the air, and she starts. You start seeing wounds like Jesus Christ would have had, the thorns and the nails, and it's like she's on the cross. So all of this is happening. So after Ebony speaks in tongues, it's like everybody's released. And yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm missing a detail, but I can't remember. So, the hole, you see the hole that the demon came out of, and you then see Andre, who is free and released. The next scene, Cynthia comes to the house. Now, at this point, Cynthia is a believer. She knows Ebony wasn't lying. And Ebony is jacked up. I mean, whoo! That demon did a number on her. But at this point, Ebony has faith. And Cynthia's saying that they're going to fight to get her kids back, but they have a tough road ahead because she got a record in addition to some other things. And she was like, if it's God's will, I'm going to get my kids back. And she was like, I wish I had your type of faith. And she gives her the cross. They hug each other out, and that is pretty much the end of the movie. They do give an update that this story was inspired by a true story. And 6 months later, Ebony did get her children. And the movie officially ends with Ebony with her children in the car, and they're driving back to Philadelphia. And she said that she's trying to work things out with their father, and the kids are happy, and that is the film. Whew. All right, so here is my honest review of the movie. Okay, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Typically, when I do these reviews, I watch a movie twice. First, for the entertainment and just to have an introductional view. Then, second, I do my notes. I did not want to watch this movie again. Now, let me say pros first. I have to give credit to these actors and actresses because they were phenomenal. Andra Day, Glenn Close as Alberta, Caleb McLaughlin as Nate Jackson, Monique as Cynthia, Demi Singleton as Shantae, Ajane Ellis as the prophet, Tasha Smith as the preacher, Anthony B. Jenkins as Andre. When I tell you the cast were phenomenal. I mean, like I said, this movie had a whole bunch of dysfunctional scenes, just toxicity, just all through it. They did amazing. So all hats goes off to them because what I'm about to say next has nothing to do with the actors and actresses because they were amazing. They played their roles and they did what they needed to do. The script is the problem. It's not that it was absolutely horrible, but it was drawn out so much. We understand the dysfunction. We get it. The toxicity in the family. That it was easy for Satan to bring in his demons in there because it was so much evil and negativity and nastiness just flowing through that home. But with that being said, this isn't something I would want to watch again. And this is coming from someone who actually enjoys watching horror movies. I really do. But no, this movie needed a few rewrites. It really did, and there was just some things I didn't understand. If the husband was in Iraq, was he not helping financially? Even if they were split up, was he not still paying child support? I get him sending things separate to his son, but what about actual child support for all three children as to why she was struggling? Two, Alberta. I'm not going to give her a pass. That scene was honestly just disturbing that she would allow that to occur to her daughter, like she would bring that on her child. But with that being said, I just think the movie dragged on so long. And I was like, it was to the point, something I never do. While I'm watching the movie, I'm on my phone because I'm trying to figure out, okay, like when is this gonna end? It was way too long. It needed a couple of rewrites. I get what he was trying to do. It's one of those movies where the last out of 2 hours of the film, 30 minutes were worth it. Out of 2 hours of the film, 30 minutes was worth it. So, will I be watching that movie again? Absolutely not. But can I just say, the transformation of Glenn Close deserves an award. Like, that woman played that role to the T. Andra Day played her role to the T. So that's why I have to keep re-emphasizing. It's not the actors and the actresses. It was the film itself. I would not watch that again. It is based on a true story. Latoya Ammons. So please look that up because apparently they do have a documentary on it. Now, recently, Lee Daniels got in some hot water, and let me just pull up what he said, okay? Because I don't want to misquote. Every black person knows in Alberta. She's part of the fabric of our community, but we've never seen her on screen before. Okay. I get what he was attempting to say. He is basically saying that within every black community, there is a woman, a white woman like Alberta. So she is a part of the very fabric of the black community. I don't think he should have said a part of the fabric of the black community. I get what he was attempting to. Well, he said what he said, so let me not put words in his mouth. I get it. Just like when I saw Glenn Close with the hairstyle, and I was like, she looked like one of them. You know, there's a particular notion and even thought that there's a particular aesthetic for women who are in a particular socioeconomic class and they date African American men. So there's a particular aesthetic they have. And we all know one. Now, me personally, I did not know in Alberta. And I know a few people who said they did not know in Alberta, but there are many people who do know in Alberta. That's where our biracial children come from oftentimes. So I get what he was saying, but I think the wording was off. It was him saying the very is the fabric of our a part of the fabric of the black community, and I think that's what's throwing people off. I'm gonna be honest, but again, Glenn Close played that character, so it just is what it is, and that is why she is a phenomenal actress. Everybody did a great job. Anjanae Ellis is one of my favorite actresses. So if you want to watch The Deliverance on Netflix, good luck. Keep an open mind. I'm gonna give it just because of the acting alone, I'm gonna give it 3 stars out of 5. Will I be watching it again? Absolutely not. It's just not my cup of tea. I found myself triggered with how they were talking to one another. The S-aid scenes, it was just a bit much for me. But I do understand that there are families who are going through that and who speak to one another like that, and like it's a reality for some. So I don't want to discredit that. So again, please, 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 if you haven't got the chance, go ahead and watch The Deliverance on Netflix. Now, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I love to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you, and I will respond, okay? If you actually click on Film-A-Tic Pop, I have other videos that I've done. I reviewed The Union. I reviewed the movie Jagged Edge, Blink Twice. So I'm going to keep giving you guys content. Let me know what you think and give me your honest opinion. You may agree, you may disagree. Either way, I want to hear from you, okay? I want to thank you for joining me at Film-A-Tic Pop, 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 Pop. And until next time, blessings to you. Stay positive, keep an open mind, and God bless you all. Love you.